also the executive director. And Trans Northland is a community-based nonprofit based in the Twin Ports area that seeks to provide support, resources, and community to the transgender community. This includes folks that are transgender, non-binary, gender non-conforming, intersex, two-spirit, genderqueer, gender diverse, and gender expansive. So Sean has been a community advocate and organized for almost 10 years. He's right from the Northland, graduated from Denville, went to college at UWS, and I'm just gonna let him take it away.
Thank you so much. And I just want to start off by saying thank you again for inviting me in to share a little bit about what it means to be trans and a little bit about the work that we do at Trans Northland. You are like my 5th or 6th church in the last 4 months, I think, and I've jokingly been talking to my family, who are very conservative Christians, about how I've been going to church so much lately. And they're always like, they're not sure if it counts. Yeah, so my name is Sean, my pronouns are he, him, and his. And yeah, let's go to the next slide. We do have a lot to cover here, and I always start off by saying an hour is never enough. 2 hours, 2 days wouldn't be enough to give you like a full crash course into what it means to be trans, gender expansive, or any other identity in that community. So I'll chat a little bit about me. We'll talk about gender versus sexuality. We'll go into some Trans 101, community barriers. Whew, there's a lot of those lately. And then I'll tell you more about our work at Trans Northland. And I always like to leave folks with next steps and some tips as allies, as you're growing in your allyship. There's resources, and I really hope we have some time for questions at the end. So I'm gonna buzz through. I'm starting my little stopwatch because I can talk forever now. All right, so that's me. That's my kid, Eleanor. She goes by Elle, and she has cool teal hair right now. And then our kitty babies, Leo and Lucy. And yeah, I've been in Duluth most of my life. We moved here when I was in 6th grade. My dad got out of the active duty Air Force, signed on at the 148th, and we've kind of been here ever since. And we can go on to the next one. Oh, and maybe I'll just mention, yeah, this is a part I'm like fine-tuning these church presentations, and I'm always curious how much I should share about my own personal story, but I grew up in the church, in a church in town that was Baptist. And then when I started sort of going through my own, I would say, exploration of my gender and sexuality, that did not jive with that church. And so I was formally excommunicated when I was about 21. And then, yeah, I mean, I was gone from the church for like 15 years because I was so hurt, so angry at God and at his people for how they had treated me. So I like to throw that out there because as someone who didn't have this kind of a setting in my church family growing up, it's so important. And I'm so grateful that more churches are coming to this place. So we're going to do a little bit of training. I want to educate you. LGBTQIA2S plus community. We jokingly call it the alphabet mafia. The letters keep extending, and they are each very important, but what I like to just highlight about our community is that there's 2 different reasons folks would be there. Because of their sexual orientation, or because of their gender identity. Actually, I guess there's 3 reasons, or both, like me. So, the quote down here at the bottom, difference between gender identity and sexual orientation is between who you are and who you love. So that's kind of one of the big assumptions we get from a lot of folks is, you're just gay, and it's like, no, there's nuances there. There's a lot of different ways that we identify within our community. And another trans person could get up here and tell you very different terms and talk about a lot of different experiences because there's no one way to be in the LGBT plus community. So for myself, for example, I'm a trans guy. I also identify as queer for my sexual orientation, just meaning I'm open to whoever God or the universe may bring me. All right. So here is our Trans 101, and everybody wants to know terminology, and everyone's also simultaneously terrified of terminology because we might say the wrong thing, right? We're going to say the wrong pronouns, we're going to use the wrong term for someone, and that's going to be hurtful. And that's true. Those things do and will happen. I do it myself. I misgender people I know. I use the wrong terms. And ultimately, I think the main thing I want to leave you with after we go through these is that, again, these things are always sort of evolving as language evolves, as our community evolves, and as more people share stories about what it means to be them. We learn about different identities like asexual and agender and different types of things that when I came out as trans 11 years ago, I didn't know what that, I wouldn't have known what that meant, right? So we're always learning and doing our best. And so when we talk about gender identity, basically that is like who you know yourself to be, what your gender is. We talk about brain versus body, gender identity, they generally say lives up in your brain. It doesn't necessarily have to correspond with different body parts. It's just who you know yourself intrinsically to be. And then sex assigned at birth, we all have one of those. So what's the first thing the doctor says? It's a boy, it's a girl. Well, maybe not as much these days because you can find out ahead of time. And gender reveal parties are interesting to trans folks. We kind of joke about those a little bit. Because who knows what that baby's gender is going to be in 18 years when they're an adult, or even sooner. A lot of our kids are being able to have access to this information and discovering who they are even sooner, which I think is so beautiful, and I wish I would have had that opportunity. So yeah, sex assigned at birth, it's that F or M they put on your driver's license. And so transgender basically means someone who is assigned a sex at birth that doesn't match how they feel themselves to be. So when I came out, they were like, it's a girl! But I wasn't. They thought I was. They taught me how to be a girl. I thought I was a girl for many, many, many years, and it wasn't until I was around 25 that a friend of mine, I was sharing some kind of dysphoria stuff, things with my body that were really uncomfortable, and she said, have you ever thought you might be transgender? And that was the first time I heard that word, when I was 25, and so that began my journey into exploration of who I was. And so a lot of folks think about this in like a very binary way, where it's like I was born a girl and then I transitioned to a male versus, born a male, transitioning to female. We're going to talk a little bit more about how it's not just those options, but that is what a lot of folks think about when they think about transgender folks. And so non-binary is getting into that space where, and actually I think on the next slide we have a better little sort of info or like a picture here. So if we're talking about non-binary folks, it's like the folks who are in the middle here. Or I talked with a non-binary person years ago, and I was sort of giving this training, and they were in the audience, and they were like, I'm not in the middle of that. And I was like, oh, you aren't? Where do you fall then? And this person said, I'm up in the stars. My gender's in the stars. And I was like, man, that blew my mind. Because I don't get that. I don't get that at all, and I'm a trans person, right? So every trans person, gender expansive person, we all have our own unique experiences with gender. And then before we popped over to this one, the last little thing was about gender expression. So does anyone have a guess at what that might mean? What's your gender expression? Nailed it. Yep. If you have short hair, if you like wearing dresses, if you have tattoos, whatever it is, right? The ways that we pick out our clothes, that is all a part of how we express our gender to the world. And so, this gender binary is the thing that really gets us stuck. It's sort of, I also think about it in terms of like, habits of white supremacy, and there's only like one right way to be and one wrong way to be. There's these two options, this binary. And like I said, as we learn more and more, it's so small and so restrictive. And I think as someone who grew up in the church, and I don't know exactly what I believe about God and all of that, but what I do believe is that humans are so complex and beautiful and expansive, and most of the time humans want to like figure each other out and throw us into little boxes rather than be like, hey, just live your life, whoever you are, however you want to express yourself, as long as we're not hurting anyone, right? Let's let folks be who they are. So those traditional gender roles, even when you think about patriarchy and all of the ways that our society has sort of been harmful in terms of coming up with these gender roles, women can only do the cooking and the baking and men go hunting, and that's very much how my family still is to this day. And oftentimes you can find me in the kitchen helping my mom clean up and do dishes because none of the other men do that, which is so weird to me. How about? So yeah, we have our non-binary and gender non-conforming folks. And again, like every person that you talk to would be able to describe their gender for you very differently. And I love having those conversations with folks. And oftentimes if you ask people who are non-binary, they also like to be able to tell you what it means for them. And then we have intersex folks. And this is what really like blows Trump's thing out of the water at the beginning of last year, the executive order that said gender is male or female. Well, there's tons of intersex people in the world. I don't know if you know that, but they say now there are as many intersex folks as there are redheads on the planet. So that's a lot of folks. And intersex means basically you're born with body parts that don't necessarily match up to what the doctors would say would be female or male. You might have both genitalia, you might have different kinds of chromosomes and hormones that just don't match what they think you should be. One of our board members for Trans Northland, her name is Laura. She's a very openly intersex woman, and she found out that she was intersex, I think, I want to say around 6 or 7 years ago, and she's in her 40s. And when she was a baby, the doctors knew something was different. They would have known. I don't know if they would have said intersex as the term, but they made decisions based on what they thought would be best for that baby. And she was raised as a male most of her life until she went into the doctor one day and was like, my hormones are all out of whack, she wasn't feeling good. And then they diagnosed her as intersex, and they were like, yeah, when you were a baby, they did these different surgeries on you, and so she had to go back and sort of get all of that corrected to what she actually felt herself to be. So there's a whole movement of intersex folks who are saying, if you have an intersex baby, wait before you make decisions about their body, that they may say later, ooh, this was the wrong one, y'all, you chose wrong. So again, just humanity is so complex and beautiful. And then, I am a very white trans guy, so I always think it's really important to throw this in, because across our planet, there have been third genders, and fourth genders, and fifth genders. It's actually like very kind of odd in the scheme and history of mankind that we have boiled ours down to just the two genders. So in a lot of different cultures, indigenous cultures, there have always been trans folks in different communities, and oftentimes those folks were revered before white folks showed up and colonized and killed off all of the two-spirit people, or tried to. They didn't. But those folks, again, yeah, they were like looked to as leaders and medicine and spirit people, and of course, that's why the colonizers went for them first, to really decimate these communities. And so we are seeing a resurgence. Two-spirit is sort of the newer term that a lot of indigenous folks use, and that was actually created back in the 90s at a conference in Canada. So indigenous folks met up and they were like, what are we gonna call ourselves? What feels right? Two-spirit. And that can mean trans, that can mean LGBT, it can mean whatever it means to each individual Indigenous person. So, we can move along. All right, transitions. So most people think about the medical transition we go through, but there's tons of different ways that we are sort of constantly transitioning, especially early on in our journeys. So when I think about a social transition, what I think about is like the process that we have to go through to come out to our people, to come out at work and get things changed on paperwork if we need, and all of that kind of stuff. It's really just being out there and living our lives like as our full, whole, trans selves. And then there are a lot of different legal things. Most folks will change their names legally, and you can change your gender legally. Here in Minnesota, this is where it gets wonky though, because lots of states are changing these things. The federal government is trying to change what can and can't be done in terms of name changes and gender markers. And we've seen that most recently play out when it has to do with passports. So there's sort of this larger issue of trans folks are now like no longer able to get a federal passport with their correct gender marker on it. And when they do apply, they get a passport back that has their sex assigned at birth on it. And folks I know who have had a passport for many years, just out of the blue, got a new one mailed to them with their old gender marker on it. So, and when Trump got elected, I was feeling a little bit nervous, and I thought, I want to get my kid a passport, just in case, you know, Handmaid's Tale. There's some scary ideas about what could be coming in the future, and so we went to get her a passport, and I had to put my old name on that form. There was no place for me to put that I'm her dad, that this is my name now. I had to put my old stuff, and then I didn't know if they were going to grant it because I'm trans, and they would have easily been able to see that on my paperwork. Thankfully, the DMV person I worked with was lovely and was like, I'm so sorry you have to do this, and she did get a passport, but this is a fear that a lot of us have right now. And then medical transitions, so yeah, that can be anything from folks starting hormone replacement therapy. For me, I take testosterone. I have a shot every week. I hate shots, but I have testosterone that I take. There's lots of different kinds of surgeries as well that folks can undergo, whether you're transitioning from male or from female. There's like vocal cord shaving and facial feminization surgery and top surgery, and there's just a lot of options out there, which is really great. Unfortunately, they're all super duper expensive, and still a lot of insurances aren't covering those for trans folks, and that's going to be challenging as we move forward as well. There's currently a ban, or they're attempting to ban gender-affirming care for trans youth, and we know that they're already talking about trans adults as well. And actually, one side note, I recently saw the Catholic Church has said that any Catholic hospitals are no longer allowed to provide gender-affirming care. So that day, I had trans folks who were like, Sean, can I still go to Essential Health? Can I still get my hormones there? And I was like, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. So there's some scary stuff happening, y'all, and again, just really grateful there's so many of you here listening right now who can go out there and be allies now for us. So, pronouns. A lot of people get nervous about messing up pronouns. Like I said, I mess up all the time. I remember a couple of years back when the they, them came out, and all the English people, I have an English degree, were like, you can't do that. Wait, what? Isn't this whole language made up? Somebody made that up. But yeah, so just as an example, there's your they, them pronouns, and if you want, there's a practice with pronouns, little website you can go to. And I won't say too much about these because I'm not an expert, but there are such things as neopronouns, which are very different from pronouns that we're used to, like he, she, they now. They're like z and zir, nay and nem, z and them, and that's a challenge because those are different words than any of us are used to, right? And so when I've known people who use those different pronouns, I practice a lot. And honestly, I do it in front of a mirror, like before I'm going to meet with that person. Okay, I'm gonna go meet here at Duluth Coffee, and we're gonna talk about her life and family, and Z is such a cool person, and so it just practice. I'm a trans person, and I practice, and so I'm gonna ask all of y'all to practice too. All right. Whew. All right, so this is, the crappy slide. So yeah, I mean, from the dawn of time, trans folks have experienced discrimination and transphobia and people who don't get us and want to hurt us. And so when I first came out, I was 27, and it was a couple months before I helped co-found Trans Northland. And so for the years that I have been doing this work, one of the first things I learned right away was there are no resources here in this community for trans folks. And if there were resources, it was like one endocrinologist at St. Luke's that everybody knew his name, and we all went to see him because we knew that he would provide hormone replacement therapy for us. There were like 18,000 hoops that we had to jump through first, and we had to go to therapy for a year, and we had to live and present as our gender for a year, and all these different things. But there were some resources that we started to find, individuals mainly, at that point. And now, thankfully, over the years, we've seen a lot more institutions, businesses, nonprofits who are beginning to realize that there are trans people in our community that they also need to be able to serve. And so our resource list has really expanded. That's something we offer on our website, is we have a resource directory that has everything from, LGBT-friendly businesses to therapists to youth activities. I mean, you name it, we've got resources, which is really incredible because 11 years ago, we had like the one guy, And so that continues to be a problem for us, especially now, obviously, with the federal government trying to crush everything, and halting funding for different nonprofits. Thankfully, Trans Northland doesn't have any federal funding, nor will we ever, probably, at this rate. We rely on folks like you and grant funding to keep us going. And so, survival has really always kind of been our main job. Gotta just survive, just gotta make it through each day. We're gonna get misgendered every day. We're gonna have to deal with really uncomfortable things every day. We just gotta survive. And sadly, the suicide rate for trans folks is up around 47% of transgender people have attempted to take their life. My best friend died by suicide 4 years ago. And so it's a pretty scary thing. And when we don't have the resources we need, when we don't have the allies and the connections and community to take care of each other, we lose a lot of our people. And I know we're gonna keep losing them. But that's why I'm here, to talk to you, and I will continue to do this work because I don't wanna lose anymore. And so yes, with our current administration, like I said, there's tons of things out there right now. They're trying to ban us from playing sports, ban us from bathrooms, basically ban us from being out in public life. If I can't use a bathroom when I'm out and about, I'm probably not gonna go out and about. Or, a lot of trans folks, we get really good at holding it. I just had that happen the other day. I didn't even need to, and I was like, I can do this. I'm trans. I can hold it for like 8 hours. And that's not healthy. I don't do that. But I remember there would be college students at UMD years ago, and they'd be like, my classes are over here, and I have to book it all the way over to like the other side of campus where they have one gender-neutral bathroom, and I never make it back and forth between classes, and so I just hold it. So, just as a plug, if you have a business or a place where you work that has bathrooms, they don't need to be gendered. Because like at our homes, those bathrooms are just bathrooms, right? We all use them. So if you have power to make some changes like that, let's do it. Okay, 22 minutes in, man, I'm doing good. Okay. So Trans Northland, coming up this spring, it'll be 11 years since we've been a part of this community. And yeah, I usually tell the story because it's so intertwined with my own story. I came out when I was 27 in December of 2014, and really the first thing that was on my mind wasn't like, how do I get testosterone, or how do I have this and that surgery, how do I do this? It was, how do I find other trans people? Am I the only trans person here in Duluth? What am I gonna do if that's the case? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Turns out, I was not the only trans person. There were many, many trans people, and there had been a group actually prior to Trans Northland, and they were called the Lake Superior Transgender Group, started by Kathy Herms and a couple of other folks in community that we're very grateful to. But when I had come out, I found this group, and at that time, they weren't really operating anymore. Their leadership had super duper burned out. Some of them were moving to the cities, and so they were like, take it, you know, y'all, I'll connect you with folks who are a part of that group. And so there was a small group of us who met at the Building for Women, and we came up with the name Trans Plus back in the day, and then we rebranded to Trans Northland a couple of years ago. But ultimately we just were like, we've gotta keep this group going. And what that group offered was twice a month peer support groups. So we were like, well, I was like, I need that. I need to sit in a circle and talk about what this means to me, and I need to be able to ask questions and hear other people's stories, and that is what saved my life, and that's what continues to save trans folks, is connecting with other people who sort of understand, may not fully understand, but yeah, so we started 2015 with that support group, and we've really grown. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, so this is our current board of directors, and me. I'm the only paid staff at Trans Northland, first and only. So far, I'm looking for money to hire more people because there's a lot of work to do. But yes, I always love to shout out our team because they help me keep doing this really incredible, really busy and stressful job. We can go to the next one. Oh, and I already talked a little bit about the history, but I'll continue. So we started that peer support group back up, and we were meeting in this little nonprofit's upstairs conference room. It had the super cool shag burnt orange carpet, and there was like a circle, folding chairs, maybe 10, fit in there easily. And I think about 3 or 4 months in, we had filled that room, and folks started asking for more from those of us who were holding the space. So they were like, support group's great, but also like, can we go for a hike? Can we like have a bonfire by the lake? Can we hang out and just, it was a call to build more community. That's not how they said it, but it was like, okay, this is clearly a need and a want from our folks, and so we started doing just that. We would host bonfires, hikes, etc., movie nights. We always tried to have like somebody donate, or like, let's pool our funds and get a little Caesar's pizza, little community group that had zero funding. And so we grew to these social events, and then we started hosting 2 community events per year. One is in March every year. March 31st is Transgender Day of Visibility, which is a great one. We love that one. We always host an event. The last couple of years we've been down at the depot, and we have live music and a food truck and just all sorts of fun stuff. And it's just this way for trans folks to feel safe, to come out and just be with our folks and celebrate who we are and celebrate the fact that we're still here and we're surviving. And Trans Day of Remembrance is our other one that we like much less. That happens in November every year, November 20th, and it's a day where we gather to honor and remember all the trans people who have been murdered in the last year. And there are lists and people who categorize and pay attention to all of that data, and it's usually around 400 or 500 people. across the world, and a lot of them, we don't even have their names. It's just like 14-year-old in Brazil. And so we oftentimes will read those names and just try to, again, come together in community to take care of one another. I mean, no one wants to gather for that kind of a reason when people are dead. I mean, we just lost Renee this last week, and it's awful. It's awful. But I think what is really beautiful from those events and the vigils that happen now, as folks are killed, is that there's a lot of us out here who really, really care and who really, really want to be a part of building safe and inclusive communities. And for me, that keeps me going. That gives me hope. And when things get hard, I have to point myself back to that. There's so many of us out here who care and who want trans folks around. Yeah, let's go on. Okay, so a little bit about what we offer now. We've still got our cool support group. I love unicorns. And then, like I mentioned, we have a really robust resource directory on our website that actually we had a team of volunteers who connected with us at the beginning of last year as things were starting to get dark. They were like, hey, we really think there should be a resource directory, and we're like, we've got one. We've just never had time to update it. Would you like to do that? So a couple of volunteers have been working really hard on updating that entire directory, so I highly recommend it. transnorthland.org. It's a great resource. And then, so Connection is, where we talk about those community events. One of the newer ones that we offer every June now is called Trans Joy Fest, which is coming up again in June, our 5th annual Joy Fest. And then after the election, that was actually about a month after I got hired on to do this work. And so I was like, wow, I don't have to work a full-time job and do this work. I have time to really think about what's happening in our country and what our community might need. And what I came up with is more events, more safe places for folks to feel like they can come out and meet people and just, have a little fun in the meantime. So I'm trying to think, we just hosted a cookies, cocoa, and crafting event in December where I think we had around 50 people who showed up. Holidays can be hard for LGBT plus folks who don't have affirming or supportive families and don't have those relationships. And so, we just try to make ourselves available. And we partner with a lot of different nonprofits in town to put on these types of events. Lifehouse was a big one that reached out to us at the beginning of last year, and they were like, we have this space. Do you want to use it for free? Because we know trans folks are under attack. And we were like, yes, we would like to use that space for free. And so we've offered a drop-in center. They call it the Imaginarium. It's right next to Spalia Yoga, if folks are familiar with that, right across from Lifehouse. And we offer a drop-in center there every Tuesday and Thursday morning from 9 to noon. So folks can just show up, and we have coffee and granola bars and some basic snacks. And folks, again, can know that that's a safe place for them to kind of get out of the house and be okay in. Yes. Ooh, okay. Next steps and ally tips. So I guess I'm curious. I haven't actually done this. How many of you would say that you're allies? Yeah. Did you feel like you had to raise your hand? Put you on the spot. I think there's this thing within the LGBT community where I think in the last couple of years I heard the term aspiring ally. And I really liked that because I think it puts the onus back on the ally to really do your work and to be that ally and not to, rely on me to come or to call me every time you have a trans question. You can use the Googles. You can, there's lots of educational information out there. So I always like to start with saying, you can educate yourself. And a lot of times that starts with something like this, right? Where someone comes in, teaches you a little bit, and then it's on y'all depending on how good of an ally you really want to be, how much time and energy you want to be able to give to our community. We need a lot of it. And so educate yourselves. And then this is another one. I always think of, hey guys. Do you say that? Hey guys. Hey everybody. Hey friends. Gendered language is all throughout the English language. We really weirdly gender things, like boats are she's and cars sometimes are too. And you know, it's just an interesting thing once you start sort of recognizing, oh, why is it that we say that? And I remember a conversation in an early support group we had where that whole hey guys came up. And this trans woman was sharing that she just really hates that. You know, she was like, I get it. I know it's like a Midwestern thing, but also it hurts because I'm not a guy. And people thought I was for a long time, and I don't want to be a guy anymore. I don't want to be referred to that way. And that was like a eye-opener for me, because I was definitely one of those people. I used to say, hey guys, all the time. And so I had to actively work on switching it. And I say friends a lot, because I want to be friends with everybody. So I'm like, hey friends, hey everybody. And like if you're a teacher, if you're someone who like speaks to groups of people, like ladies and gentlemen is exclusive. That doesn't cover everybody who's going to be in your audience. So if you say, hey everyone, esteemed guests, there's so many different fun ways. If you're like, well, I really like ladies and gentlemen, there's fun ones to replace it. All you got to do is do a little of that educating. So yeah, just start noticing where those gendered things come up, and then imagine if you can change it or think of a new way. So pronouns, we talked about those. Did you know that we all have pronouns? You have a pronoun, you have a pronoun, we all have pronouns. So continue to practice, and I always say, a lot of folks will say, well, what do I do if I don't know what someone's pronouns are? If like someone new walks into your church and you're like, based on their gender expression, you're like, I don't know. That trans person, if they are trans, is gonna much more appreciate you asking than guessing and getting it wrong, right? So you're like, hey, I'm Sean. My pronouns are he, him. What are yours? You just model it. You just share yours. And then that person's gonna be like, wow, it's gonna feel good to them. And then they're gonna get to share that with you. And then there's no uncertainty, right? They're like, ooh, what do we do? Just ask. We want you to ask. All right, and so then offer up your skills. That's another thing I thought of sort of after the election, because we started getting lots of emails from allies who were like, we see what's happening. What can we do? What do you need? And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, what do I tell these folks? What would be helpful? And so, as I was sort of thinking about this creating more safe spaces idea I had, more events, that was something that came to me. I was like, well, hey, if you're a knitter and you want to offer your knitting services, or you want to teach people how to knit and start a knitting club, reach out to us and we will help. And so what this has looked like over the last year is, for example, we had someone who reached out and they do bookbinding stuff. I had never done that before. And so they reach out and they're like, hey, I'm a bookbinder, I'd love to offer this for the community for free, right? And so then I do all the behind the scenes work of planning that event, finding a venue, getting all the supplies, all that stuff, and that person shows up and offers their skills and shares their skills with folks who have that interest in growing a knitting hobby maybe. And fun fact, my mom is a big knitter, and I've never wanted to knit before, but very recently I'm like, this might be kind of a fun thing, that she could teach me and we could do together, and my kid is kind of interested too, so knitting is a good example for me because I might start knitting soon. But yeah, we had a person who had recently moved here from Colorado who has led a couple of queer botany hikes. I know nothing about sciencey stuff, so that was a lot of fun, so it really can be anything. Whatever skill that you have that brings you joy, we want you to do that thing that brings you joy and then share it. Because I think there's going to be more folks who also find joy in that thing and want to show up. And not only are they learning a cool new skill that's like, self-care to do stuff like that, but also we're hoping they're meeting people and they're making connections, and maybe a person in that room who's knitting with them is someone they can reach out to when they're having a hard time, when they're scared about what's coming in the future. So yeah, I bet there's a lot of hobbies in this room. So you can email me anytime and be like, hey, bird watching. We're gonna go bird watching. And I'll be like, yes, tell me when. And then lastly, speak up. There's no right way. There's no one right thing that you can say when you hear someone talking and saying nasty things about trans people, but it really doesn't take a whole lot. I don't expect you to give that person a Trans 101 training, but what I would like you to say is something like, that's not funny, or I know a trans person and I don't think that that's funny. It doesn't take a lot to speak up. And a lot of us have family members and friends and neighbors and employees, colleagues, who may not think that they know a trans person. They may have their own beliefs about what it means to be trans and what rights we should or shouldn't have as trans humans. But the fact that you are in their life means something. You can be that person who maybe sparks something. I like to think about it as staying curious, because as someone with a very conservative family, I am the rainbow sheep of the family. I've had to think a lot about this, and I've had many fights and many angry screaming matches about, why don't you get it? Why won't you support me for being trans? And it's not really effective to go about that way, but I have found that if I can get curious, well, what do you think God meant when he created male and female? What do you really think that meant? Asking questions where hopefully someone will not automatically be on the defensive and be like, this is what I think about trans people, they're wrong and they shouldn't be in our communities. Maybe there's an ounce of curiosity, an ounce of compassion that can be sparked in those people because of you. And that saves me a lot of time, because there's only one of me, and I can't go and educate and speak up on behalf of all of us all the time, because I'd probably be dead, to be honest. It's a hard job that I have, and so knowing that I'm supported and I have my allies behind me when I go and do this work is really, really meaningful and powerful for me and lots of trans folks. Okay. Bam. Resources, we're on there. This used to be linked to where you could click each one, and I don't know, technology did something weird with it, but I was gonna share with Brenda and everybody. You can definitely share this PowerPoint, and you can also find all of these resources on our website as well. We've got some local ones in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and then these national resources. A lot of them have a lot of really good training type programs, online things you can just do for free, these national groups. And then when it comes to keeping up with the insanity, keeping up with what's happening right now against trans people, we have been looking to Outfront Minnesota and Gender Justice as sort of the two main ones. Gender Justice, they're both based in the Twin Cities. Gender Justice is a bunch of lawyers who do really great work around gender equity. They currently have a lawsuit right now on behalf of a young lesbian woman who was treated terribly in a bathroom at Buffalo Wild Wings in Minnesota. And so they represent and sue a lot of, or I guess I should say they sue against these really discriminatory things that are coming down from the federal government. So we follow them when it comes to that, and Outfront Minnesota also is really, has become like a very huge voice in the state and at the legislature. And so if you're curious about those things, they are really good ones to follow. And there we go, we made it. And what do we have, 3 minutes? How long is this, 45 minutes? No, we got time. Okay, so I always like to leave room for questions, or try to. Does anyone have a question? And do we want to walk a mic around? Probably not, I suppose. Yeah. Don't be shy. Did I answer all your questions? Wow, that's the first. Oh, okay, I see one over here. Great.
I'll just try shouting.
Okay.
What's your response to the dark accusations that float around about trans people wanting to recruit our youth? We need to protect them from any contact because you're out to recruit our youth.
It's the trans agenda. Yeah. Yeah, it's such a weird thing. I think I can't remember if I changed. Usually on my like agenda page, I have it, the trans agenda, because I just think it's silly. Yeah, I would say that's not happening. Oftentimes what we say is we are not trying to change your children, we are trying to make sure that they grow up. If they happen to be trans or gender expansive, or they're just exploring their gender or sexual orientation in any way, we say, let them. That's like the time for kids to explore, to kind of figure out who they are, what life means to them, how they want to express themselves to the world. It's been interesting as a parent, a newer parent. You know, my kid, I don't even know where she got it, but we named her Eleanor, which is a very, kind of feminine name, and she, out of the blue, was just like one day, just call me Elle. I don't want to be called Eleanor, I want to be called Elle. And I could have been like, no, Eleanor is the name we gave you, and that's what we're going to call you, because that's who you are, and you're not an adult, you can't make that decision, but we went with it. We're like, okay, we're learning who you are just as you're learning who you are, and so we want to trust and believe kids who have questions about gender or sexual orientation. But yeah, we're not all groomers. We're not all trying to harm children or anyone. I mean, I hope that after all of this, you can recognize that trans people are just people who happen to be trans, but like we're also dads and employees and college students and all of the things. We are everywhere in this community, including youth. And that doesn't have to be a scary thing. The thing around trans youth is a lot of fear-mongering, fear tactics, and just honestly outright lies about how gender-affirming care looks for trans youth. And what I can say really briefly about that is that it's a huge team of folks that works with that family, including a therapist, including a primary doctor, including an endocrinologist or hormone doctor, and including the family. And so it's not these stories of like, kids are having gender surgery and coming home a boy, going to school a girl and coming home a boy. That is not happening anywhere. And if it is, I mean, I'm like, how did they do that? Because all the trans adults want to know. Like, I could just go somewhere and then I'll go home and be, what? What? How does that work? And I think, I'll just name too, the sports bans. I mean, all of that is about youth. And people are really, really concerned about that. And there has not been one harmful incident with a trans athlete and a cis athlete ever recorded in our country. There are like 6, I think, collegiate trans athletes in the entire country. So this is a made-up problem. This is not a problem that we should be working on. We should be working on getting trans folks housing and employment and making our society a safe place for us to feel like we can actually safely go out and be who we are without fear. And I still don't do that every day. I still have fear. Okay, sorry, that was a long answer. But
I just want to, is it on?
You have to hold it right up. It is
You
on.
gotta kiss it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
I just wanted to thank you for your presentation. Very informative. I really, I'm still learning a lot, and my second son was gay, and he committed suicide at 44 years old with alcohol. And so I understand the suffering that goes on, and it's, he was smart, he was a McNair scholar, he graduated from UWS a year before he died, but he could not live any longer, so thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad he was a part of our community. Yeah, we have lost way too many.
Was there a question back there?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, if there's no question.
Oh, and maybe over this way, or,
Um,
okay, yeah.
Then just take a question first.
Oh, I have a comment. So many of you know that I'm a school social worker, and I had been at one of the middle schools for the past 7 years, and lots and lots of kids are really grappling with their identity on every letter of the LGBTQIA2S+, and all the, it's shifting all the time, and we grown-ups can be flexible and curious with them, and the more that we are, then they are relieved to have a moment's peace where they don't have to wonder, well, is Miss Fuchs a safe person? I don't know. Or is this teacher a safe person? Or is this classmate a safe person? I know that these classmates aren't safe people, and every time that they can just be, or is my aunt a safe person? Is my mom or my dad? So it is so intensely on their mind. They are just really at a lot of risk, and anytime that they can just have a warm community that's like, I don't get it, but like, I'm here for you, kiddo, is huge. So, yeah.
Exactly.
So thank you.
Yep. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, one supportive adult in a queer or trans youth's life will save their life, even if you don't know anything. You're just there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank you. Your sense of humor is disarming, and I love it. I've made some mistakes. I'm a pastor, retired pastor. I've had some good experiences with community at Gloria Dei. And the reason for that at Gloria Dei was not just because of me. As a matter of fact, it was because there were gay people in the congregation and transgender people in the congregation that stepped up and took risks, but I was able then to create a safe space, and it happened. Some people left, okay? Anyway, and then at Millard One, when I was director of pastoral care back in the 80s, I had kids from this congregation and all of the congregations in Duluth who were struggling with their sexuality and were suicidal go through our adolescent treatment program. And a safe space is absolutely critical. I made a mistake with a transgender friend. I thought that I had enough knowledge and ability to create a safe space for her, but I didn't convene a small community of safe leaders in that congregation. And then she started getting abused. And we're doing it right here with inviting you, with becoming an LGBTQIA friendly congregation. And so I applaud your presence here, and I hope that you take to heart this presentation, because it's absolutely critical for us to be a safe place as we profess for all of our esteemed guests. That's our welcoming posture. And I want to thank all of you for continuing to be curious and continuing to support the not just the transgender, but the entire alphabetical scheme that people are struggling with. The two-spirited cultures did this automatically. They elevated people that had this wonderful, my mother at 80 years old, when I asked her what she thought about this stuff, I didn't tell her how I was involved. She said, "We are all fearfully and wonderfully made," quoting from Psalm 139. So anyway, I just didn't want to interrupt some questions here, but just wanted to give that testimony.
Thank you for that.
So real quick, I have been blessed to hear Sean speak before, and so I was hoping that at the very end, what you could do for us is give us one little thing. So as an example, I got to hear Sean speak last year when we convened a meeting at Gloria Day of folks who are interested in supporting and affirming from our local congregations. And one of the small things that Sean mentioned was that if we could in some way be visible to the community by wearing a pin or putting our pronouns on our name tag, or I wear a watch band that has a rainbow on it now. And I will say in the last year, I have noticed a distinct uptick in interactions with me from the community, just in a different way. I think that just seeing the pin on my back, we travel a lot, my husband and I travel a great deal, so we've been in 10 different states in the last year, and we've always traveled a lot. And in the last year, it's undeniable how much that small pin or badge or flag has made a difference. And so I was wondering if, Sean, if you have anything else small that seems small to me, because that seems like such a small thing to me. It was $3 on Amazon, and you know, it took 5 minutes to pin to my bag. But I think that, at least I hope, it's made interactions easier. People know that they can talk to me. And so is there anything else other than, you know, what do you have for us? Little things like that that we can immediately implement that would make you guys feel safer and be able to identify us.
I love that. Thank you. I need to add that onto my thing. Yes, seriously, I would say that. If you wear a rainbow, if you wear a trans pin, if you have an ally pin, seriously, I will see that. People in our community will see that, and they will feel safer around you. Because sort of the safe thing that we do right now, because we live in survival mode all the time, is we automatically assume places aren't safe, that people aren't safe, because we don't know what they're gonna do. They might say a mean thing to us, or they might hurt us. And that has happened. All of those things have happened and continue to happen here in the Northland. And so I wanna just say thank you for that. Because yeah, the visible, anything visible, if you have an email signature and you can add your pronouns, like there's so many ways. Put a yard sign up in your yard, right? Instead of buying one $3 ally pin, buy a stock of 100 and hand them out at your next Sunday school class. Like there's so many ways that you can make it more visible that you are a safe person. Because the not safe people are out there being really vocal and direct. And so if that is the least you can do is wear a rainbow pin, I'll take it. And then maybe in a year, you'll feel a little bit braver in your allyship and you'll get a yard sign. Who knows, a bumper sticker, whatever it is, right? Like, those, we are here and we see those things. I'm constantly looking for signs of, is this a safe space? Does this church have a rainbow up? Does it say welcoming and affirming on the, you know, fancy text screen that says stuff on it? And I'm trying to think, you know, I think I'm gonna put the onus back on each of you because I think each of us have such a unique life experience. So whether it's your home, you can put something up in your window, whether it's you're gonna just start listening to an LGBT podcast or, you know, tuning in to, we actually do a new live stream thing every other Wednesday at noon on Facebook and YouTube where we invite different trans people from the community to come and share about who they are and the cool things they're doing, you know, so there's lots of different ways, and I would be remiss to not say, donate. We, Trans Northland, need your financial support to continue doing this work. And honestly, we need it more now than ever because I can't be the only one. There's way too much. And there's a lot of unemployed trans folks right now that I could be like, come work for us if we had more money. So transnorthland.org/donate. If that is something you're able to do. But yeah, I would just encourage each of you to think about what is it that I have that I could offer that doesn't maybe feel super hard, that knitting thing, you know? I don't want people to come to us and be like, can we plan this really boring event that I don't want to do really? You know, like find what it is that would bring you joy and that you want to share and share it out. Share it out. We need way more joy, all the trans joy. And come to Trans Joy Fest in June 7th. Yes.
I
don't know, I didn't know how to, respond to somebody. I didn't know how to respond to somebody that was talking and they said, well, I don't understand why they don't just take the hormone that fits their body. As in exploring.
Yeah. Like for me, my body initially made lots of estrogen. And then I was like, but wait, this doesn't feel right. My body, I need more testosterone in there. And so, I mean, I think there's probably tons of people in this room and in this congregation who go through menopause, perimenopause. Our hormones are constantly changing throughout our lives. And we may need more help with that, whether we're trans or whether we're cisgender, which I didn't include on my terminology either, but if you're not transgender, you're cisgender. And it's not a bad word, it's just who you are. You're not trans. And so I would say, you know, each one of us makes our own health decisions for our bodies, right? Based on what we know, based on how we feel, that no one else can feel, right? Can make those decisions for us. And so, you know, I always encourage folks to speak with their doctors and to tell them what it is they need and what's missing. And I think that's what we all do, right? We all go to get the help we need. And yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but I would just say everyone's different. And like, we live in a country of freedom. And so why should I care what any other person does to their body or the conversations they have with their doctor? That's none of my business. That doesn't impact me at all. But those conversations I have about my body, that's something that we can talk more about, you know?
And I think she was specifically talking about children.
And how taking hormones like can't, yeah, there's some different things about that. So like for me being on testosterone, I couldn't get pregnant right now, but if I went off of it in a month, I could potentially be pregnant. So the body's, yeah, I'm not a sciencey medical person, but I do know that there's different ways hormones impact all of us. And we're learning new things all the time. Science is really cool and like true, I don't know. Yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I just wanted to share that I have a trans person in my, I would just say close relationships. It's through a relationship to somebody I'm related to is related to this trans person. Anyway, I knew them when they were very young and presented as a girl. And then they transitioned to male as in their teens, and now is a young adult living a trans life, married and wonderful human being. But when this happened, I thought, I need to educate myself. I was really glad you had that on your list, which I did. I started reading things, lots of articles. There was something on PBS about trans people, and I watched that. And one of the books I read, which I have to recommend it, it's called She's Not There, A Life in Two Genders by Jennifer Finney Boylan. It was written a while ago. It was a national bestseller. And it really gives the inside story of this professor, a college professor who lived male till, I mean, he had a wife and 2 little boys and transitioned. And it's just really good because Jennifer shares what's going on in her mind and her heart, and all of that just really helped me to relate to this person who I really, really like. He's just a delightful human being, but I would really encourage just to read some things out there, and that's really helped. And yeah, I've put my foot in the pronouns so many times. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
What's the author's name?
The author's name is Jennifer Finney Boylan. It's Finney Boylan.
And I'll just say, that's another thing that you can do. Go to Barnes & Noble or wherever, some local Zenith bookstore and buy. There's tons of books written by trans and gender expansive authors now that have been published. And yeah, hearing people's stories it's hard to still be hateful and judgmental when you have heard someone's actually, their authentic emotional story.
There's also another book called Two-Spirited, and it's an excellent history of tribal, different ways tribes address this. And so I would highly recommend that, because many of the tribes had welcoming communities right from the beginning, and and adapted this natural process into the welcoming lives of their tribes. So anyway, it's Two-Spirited. I can't remember the author. It's not a trans or an LGBTQ author. It's cisgender author.
I know what book you're talking about, because someone just showed me that book, actually.
Got a lot of good, really good reviews.
Yes, excellent, yes.
I'm concerned when people worry about the grooming of children. When we talk about binary or non-binary, we categorize things in every way, all the time, black or white, good or bad, including body types. And I think we need to be aware of giving our children more expansive choices so that they aren't thought of only girls or boys, or sports for girls or boys. I've got a 4-year-old granddaughter who, when she's asked what her favorite color is, and the other colors are all bad if you don't have a favorite, she says rainbow.
Wow.
I love that.
I think that's something we need to do with our children, is think of how binary we are and how we can help them not continue that.
Yes, thank you for saying that. Yeah, and I'm constantly doing that with my kids. She'll be like, oh yeah, this princess married that prince. And I'm like, oh yeah, but that prince could marry another prince, It doesn't have to be a whole seminar you give your kid or grandkid. It's just like, oh yeah, but we can also love lots of different people and in different ways. And maybe one last thing I'll share, kind of as you were saying, binary and non-binary. I saw a post years ago, probably from a trans Christian somewhere, and it was really helpful for me. And it talked about how, the Bible may seem very binary in ways, like the creation story they talked about was like God made the light and the dark. He made the land and the sea, right? It doesn't say he made twilight and sunrises and sunsets and afternoon heat and midday. But all those things are true too, right? And so I love that we may see it's like this or this, but it's like there's so many shades in between. There's so many different ways to be. And if we do believe that God is expansive and huge and way smarter than all of us, I mean, that just makes sense to me, that we would still be learning how God has created the earth, animals, everything in it, people too, to just be so unique and cool and I don't know, I love that. So, thanks. I brought that up to my family and they were like, whoa. Oh, I thought that was good candy for sure. But no, that's okay. But and to that effect, as we're wrapping up too, I joke a little bit, but I do love my family, and I had many people along the years who said you should just cut them off because they're never going to support you, they're never going to affirm you, and that never felt good for me because I love my family. And is there a little part of me that hopes maybe one day God will open their eyes? It won't be me, maybe. But, and if that doesn't happen, that's okay too, because I do believe we can be in relationship with people who share different values. It's just hard. It's hard. It's hard work, but I think it's worth it. And I think that's how we're going to make change on a big scale in our country and in the world, is by doing those hard things, having the hard conversations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joe. And yeah, I don't know, Brenda, if you wanted to wrap anything up, but I was going to say, reach out to me anytime. My contact info is on, I think it's the last slide, is all of my contact info. I love to hear from folks, so reach out anytime.
And just what, Just will say that we're hoping to have another adult forum in the next few months about gender affirming care. So that might be another great one. I'm not sure when that's gonna happen yet, but thank you all for coming.